The year 2020 will forever be etched in history as one of the most devastating years for America, especially the Black American community. Starting with the impact of COVID-19 and its concentrated assault on Blacks, killing them at a rate from 2 to 7 times more than non-Blacks. Combined with social media spreading the news of innocent and unarmed Blacks being murdered at the hands of individuals claiming to uphold the law. On February 23, 2020, 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery was chased down and shot by white residents of a South Georgia neighborhood. This is being referred to as a modern-day lynching. Arbery was convicted and executed without trial by ordinary citizens. It took over 2 months for the 3 men involved in the murder to be arrested and charged. On March 13, 2020, 26-year-old Breonna Taylor was shot at least 8 times and killed in her home by 3 police officers who were executing a no-knock search warrant due to a narcotics investigation. Turns out, the perpetrator was already in custody. And the police were at the wrong residence. In September 2020, over 5 months after the shooting, one of the 3 officers involved in the shooting was charged with wanton endangerment and terminated from his position on the police force. None of the other officers involved were charged for her death. The details of this case threw gasoline on an already igniting society, frustrated with the pandemic, racial injustices, and police brutality. On May 25, 2020, 46-year-old George Floyd was held down by several police officers and suffocated with a knee on his neck in the streets of Minneapolis. Floyd begged for his life and screamed. He could not breathe for over 8 minutes before dying. After his murder, peaceful and violent protesting, rioting, and looting broke out across America and around the world. On June 5, 2020, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser had 2 blocks of 16th Street in D.C. painted with the words "Black Lives Matter." On June 10, 2020, a lawsuit was filed against Mayor Bowser by a D.C. native religious leader who claimed Mayor Bowser was violating the First Amendment rights of D.C. citizens. The suit also fallaciously identified the Black Lives Matter movement as a religious cult, a Black identitarian group, and a pro-communist group. During the first presidential debate of 2020, rather than seizing the opportunity given to him to denounce racism and radical white supremacist groups, President Trump chose to tell these groups to stand back and stand by. During a most critical time and need for leadership, with hundreds of thousands of deaths due to COVID-19, civil unrest due to racial injustice, and widespread unemployment, the topics of racism and where we need to go from here as a nation have become increasingly difficult to discuss, yet more necessary to approach. So, the question becomes, How does one approach difficult conversations related to these events? Hello, I'm Dr. Robert Evans III, CEO and founder of Empowerment Counseling and Training Services. I'm here to introduce to you a series on new normal discussions. What is this series all about? Well, who would have known what 2020 was going to bring? 2020 has ushered in from the very beginning a pandemic that we're still trying to fight. A political landscape that is polarizing and still is. And police brutality, where we've seen people get killed on camera. And what do all of these things have in common? Race. We've seen riots and violence as a result of these things. And it's bringing us to tough conversations that we just have to have. People don't know how to have these conversations. They don't know what to say. They want to say something, they just don't know how to begin the discussion. And that's the importance of this series, because we are a nation divided, not just between races, but also within races. We can barely have a conversation with people within our race, let alone people outside of it. So we got to get into it. We're going to talk about difficult conversations just about race. We're going to talk about having these conversations with your children. And then we're also going to talk about implicit bias and practical tips on how to fight those urges and those prejudgments that you may have when you see someone. So please stay tuned.